From the Lakeland FM News Desk, I'm Matthew White. Good afternoon. Firefighters are battling to free a woman trapped underneath her vehicle after it overturned on State Highway 1 just north of Wairakei. The one-vehicle accident happened more than an hour ago, and
July 1991. Pilot John Fennell is airborne on another rescue mission.
Unfortunately, a lot of the jobs we go to are motor vehicle accidents, and on days like today where the roads become wet and slippery, it's almost a certainty that we'll get an accident of some kind. With the State Highway 1 running right past Taupo, there's a lot of traffic with large densities and sometimes travelling at quite high speed.
Paramedic Ross Lee is an advanced care St John ambulance officer based at Taupo. It was his turn to be rostered to the search and rescue helicopter.
Sorry, cannot understand you. We will clear the road. You can land on the State Highway.
The air ambulance is an Aerospatiale Squirrel, the most common helicopter used in search and rescue work in New Zealand today. For the seriously injured victim, the arrival of the helicopter, its crew and life-saving equipment offers an increased chance of survival and full recovery. The concept of the golden hour is well accepted in medical circles. If Doreen gets to appropriate medical care within an hour, her chances of survival are doubled and perhaps even trebled.
Good deal. Just want to stay waiting still. We'll pull the whole board. Right, let's pull the whole board out. Yeah, I'm just putting it here. Hold it. Right. Okay, we're right. Yep. Lift. Good. Hang on, love. Okay, towards Colleen. Good. Hold that arm. Hold that arm. No. Good man. Good man. That's it. Good. Okay, into the middle of the board a bit.
It is vital that she reaches an intensive care unit because of the extent of her injuries. Doreen is to be transported from the crash site to the Waikato Hospital Intensive Care Unit, a trip of 35 minutes by helicopter compared to 2 hours by road ambulance.
with an update from that earlier story, firefighters have successfully freed a 73-year-old woman who was trapped by her arm underneath a vehicle when it rolled on State Highway 1 just north of Wairakei this morning. Ambulance officers are at the scene, and the woman is likely to be flown to Waikato Hospital within the next few minutes by the Phillips rescue helicopter.
I'll check it on that other side, no? Darling, there's something here. You've got a black eye, look. Yeah. Oh, you're going to Waikato, sweetheart.
The intensive care unit at Waikato Hospital serves the central North Island region, an area as far afield as Gisborne and New Plymouth, and receives up to 100 helicopter-transported patients a year. One of the receiving intensive care specialists is Rowan Hyde.
It's important that they're transported quickly, safely, with the appropriate medical team, doctor and nurse, with all their specialised equipment to bring them back here sooner. If you're bouncing around in the back of a road ambulance for some hours, it's a lot more difficult, it's a lot more stressful, and you can't keep as good an eye on the patient. And there's delays in actually initiating further treatment back here.
Roger, do you have a date of birth?
What's the date of birth, Ron? A 74-year-old lady from a motor vehicle rollover. She's trapped in the vehicle for approximately an hour and a half. Now, this lady appears to have a fractured skull, fracture to the right humerus, left ulnar radius. There's no other apparent trauma elsewhere. She has a known cardiac condition.
Doreen now depends on Ross Lee. His job is to constantly monitor her condition and administer treatment until she reaches advanced medical care.
The Waikato Hospital receiving over.
I have put through 1,000 mils of normal saline, and BP at this stage is 160/90. I have it running at present a HEMA cell, which is TKVO. Travelling well and will produce on 10 litres of oxygen over.
Hamilton Hotel, November 5.
Hotel November 5, will
2 miles to the southeast, 700 feet about, with 5 POV for the hospital.
Ross is in direct communication with the intensive unit at Waikato Hospital. Any deterioration in Doreen's condition is referred instantly to the critical care doctors. This ensures that Rowan Hyde and his team are as fully prepared as possible for the patient's arrival.
Hamilton Hotel, November 5.
Hotel November 5, will
2 miles to the southeast.
The helicopter is an indispensable tool in this procedure. It provides some dramatic advantages that no other form of transport can.
1003, report landing.
It provides the patient with safe, stable conditions and rapid transport with no traffic jams, a complete door-to-door service, landing in the hospital helipad just 3 minutes away from the emergency department. That's the sort of benefit that Doreen couldn't get from any other service. The helicopter transportation was a major factor in her successful recovery.
There we are. That's what we want. Good gear, right. Oh, that's all right.
There are 7 designated rescue helicopter services operating in this country. They provide a comprehensive search, rescue and medical transport service for the greater part of New Zealand. They are based in Whangarei, Auckland, Hamilton, Taupo, Hastings, Wellington and Christchurch. Each is administered by a trust that ensures that the funds invested in these operations are properly spent. Search and rescue helicopters are dependent upon sponsorship and public funding to keep them operational.
Newstalk 1ZB. Scotty Wilson is the General Manager of Auckland Regional Rescue Helicopter Trust. Morning, Scotty.
Yes, good morning, Leighton.
Are you well?
I'm fine, thank you.
Now, at the moment, you've got to raise, what is it, $1.2 million a year
That's right.
to run the service.
Yes.
How do you do it?
Well, we're very lucky we have Westpac behind us, of course.
Funding requirements are a continual headache for the rescue trusts. The Auckland Regional Rescue Helicopter requires $1.2 million to maintain its present level of operations. The 3 biggest trusts are based at Auckland, Wellington and Taupo. The Phillips Search and Rescue Trust, based in Taupo, was started in 1985 following the biggest air search in the history of New Zealand. 3 people lost their lives. One was the managing director of Phillips New Zealand Limited. As a result of that search, Phillips set up a rescue helicopter service to the central North Island, a legacy to the people who lost their lives and a way of thanking those involved in the search.
This operation here at Taupo is a compromise in that it's a commercial operation as opposed to a lot of the others where they're full-time dedicated air ambulances. So we have a conflict in that it may be out on commercial work and it requires some time to change it back into its air ambulance role, particularly if it's out spraying. It will take 20 minutes at least. But the majority of the cases where it's a straightforward rescue off Mount Ruapehu or a motor vehicle accident, that if we haven't got the helicopter airborne within 10 minutes, we're looking for reasons why.
Wellington is served by the Life Flight Trust, which was set up by New Zealand's best-known helicopter rescue pilot, Peter Button. The operation provides a comprehensive facility for the lower North and upper South Island areas. Medical Director of the Wellington Life Flight Trust is neurosurgeon Russell Worth.
We're operating a 7-day, 24-hour service, depending on the weather, providing 4 major lines of service: search and rescue, Casevac, Medivac and convalescent transfers, both using helicopter and fixed-wing aircraft. Trying to get a bit of turbulence behind this rock here.
Like the Wellington operation, the Auckland Regional Rescue Helicopter Trust is a dedicated 24-hour, 7-day-a-week rescue service. Today, the crew is on a winch exercise in the wild surf conditions at Piha Beach.
And moved out, and we have 60 to run. Roger, and losing target. Roger, losing target. We have 20 to run. 15, 10, 8.
The man on the end of the wire is Graham White, a physiotherapist from Auckland and one of the 10 volunteers who work alongside the 3 professional crewmen.
We have a thumbs. Clear up, lifting weight.
Okay, make it weight.
Clear winch in.
Clear winch in.
Roger, winch in. Cable's running well. Slight sway on the tail, which I'm counteracting. Steady up.
Steady up.
Roger, there's slight sway and a slight twist on the cable, which I'm counteracting. Crewman is approaching skid. Here's now the skid. I have crewman to door, and I have man door. Up, clear to movement.
Clear to movement.
Moving in. Moving in. And heading up.
The Auckland service is the most comprehensive mobile rescue unit in New Zealand.
Unclipping and belting in. And taking off excess cable.
Public news. He fell 70 feet into an 800-foot shaft on Mount Owen near Nelson. Ground parties found him and treated his injuries. But it was his evacuation that captured the public's imagination. It was by helicopter and was typical of the increasing number of rescues in which helicopters were involved.
And the doctor said that the only possible way was to get him out by air, and we used a Sikorsky S-55 helicopter on that rescue. We had a lot of weather trouble. We were delayed about 16 hours. Well, the mountain was in heavy cloud. We couldn't get in. But just when it looked we weren't going to get out at all that day, we got a short break, about half an hour, and we were just able to get him in and got him out, and the weather closed in again for about another 2 days.
A World War II fighter pilot, 74-year-old John Reed, learned to fly helicopters at the end of the war in Britain. On his return to New Zealand, he started his own helicopter company.
There were a lot of skeptics about who thought we were just something, a passing phase in aviation, and would disappear about as quickly as we'd arrived. But the machines we were using were Army surplus from the Korean War, and although we had very limited power and very short engine lives, provided we worked our performance figures out carefully, they could be used up to about rescues at 5,500 feet.
In the late 60s, the helicopters came to town. In 1969, helicopter pilot George Sabiki was sent to Auckland with his helicopter.
I obtained a job with Alexander Helicopters, who was totally an agriculture operator, and my task was to come to Auckland and set up an operation which did not rely on the agricultural sector.
George Sabiki, the pilot, had available time and focused on surf life-saving as a possible means of using his helicopter.
And at this stage, we really did not have any idea of how we were going to go about integrating a helicopter into surf rescue.
A similar time to that, Auckland Surf were also looking at other methods to transport patients and people back from especially the West Coast beaches.
Sabiki found the work he needed, and Surf Lifesaving had a new method of saving lives on the beaches. The proposed Surf Lifesaving service was introduced to the public at Bethells Beach in January 1970. Today, George is back there where it all began, reliving that first surf jump with Malcolm Beattie, one of the original helicopter crewmen.
Well, I guess, George, it was a day like this, wasn't it?
To say so about the same as today, sun shining, and you were 20 years younger.
I was 20 years younger, definitely.
Okay, I'm in position.
Okay, moving in over top of them now.
Right. That was back in the summer of 1970. We had a visiting lifeguard, a guy called Phil Stubbs from California, who said he knew all about helicopters or jumping out of them, but actually I think we taught him also, didn't we? He got here quite a day.
Right, take him up now. You got it.
Give us an all clear above.
All clear above, take him up about 6 feet.
Okay.
Your height's perfect, no problem at all. Perfect, that's okay. Coming into dry land. 5, 4,
Today, surf rescue operations are a routine exercise, but 20 years ago it was a different story.
It was quite frightening because we were entering into an area that really we didn't know much about. George Sabiki as the pilot had an idea, we as surf lifesaving had an idea. We wanted to put